Let's just get into it. So today we are doing drop shadows, and so you will be making a total of 6 cubes, right? In panels 1, 2, and 3, there'll be 2 cubes each, and then for the fourth panel, we're going to do an upside down L-shaped object. So I'm going to dive into what you'll actually be doing here. So for page setup, standard 4 panels, your name, DES205, section 001 or 2, depending on what you are. Title of the assignment is Drop Shadows. So each panel, I would recommend having the horizon line semi-high on the page. It doesn't need to be as high as I've put it, but I wouldn't. We have to be able to see the top of your cube. And so what I mean by that is just I want to have us making sure that we're seeing this top plane. Because the whole point, the reason that we're structuring a lot of how we're setting up the page is due to three-dimensionality, right? So we want to sell 3D space, and if you have a cube as such where it's bigger than the horizon line, we only have 2 faces. And a 2-faced cube is a lot less dimensionality than a 3-faced one because you're going to get 3 different shades of gray versus only 2 different shades of gray, and that's just flat, right? So when we start doing this scene, we're going to be drawing 2 cubes. I recommend drawing them kind of, in the center of the frame. I definitely wouldn't go any farther than I have because we're going to be giving them, drop shadows. And so if your cube is to the edge of the frame, you don't have enough space to put your drop shadow, which is the whole point of the assignment. So I'm going over some specifics here for the cube and lighting setup because it actually really matters to the approach for how we're doing it. So I want you to conceptually think about this, or just light in general, one directional, one source light, as though I like to view my object as a thought experiment from the light's perspective, because that's how it works, right? If I am the light, this is my base, right? We need to establish a base first off, because if I don't establish a base, then my light could be anywhere, right? If this is my base, that means it's behind the cube. If my base is down here, it's in front of the cube. If my base is back here, it's super far, it's far in the distance. So you need to establish a base because you can't do drop shadows without knowing where your light is actually located in the space. So we're doing this. Your light source always needs to be significantly larger than your cubes. I drew these cubes kind of as big as you can fit them on this panel and still have everything work out, have the drop shadow be on the page. This is about as big as you can get. So if your cubes are a little bit proportionately smaller, their size versus the size of the panel, that's totally fine. Don't go too small or anything, but this is about as big as you can go and still have it look right. But always have your light source quite a bit higher. And so now as the thought experiment, how would we be viewing, if we were the light, how would this cube look? Right? If we kind of draw out extruding lines, you can see that the base of our light only has access to this face, and then it's above the horizon, so it has access to this face. So it's really only seeing 2 faces, which means that our cube, probably looks something like this from the light's angle, right? Where it's seeing a lot of that top face, less of this front face. Now, the whole reason that this is very important is because there is incorrect places to put our lamp, right? If I put my lamp right here, right on this corner, that means that it is past, right? It's past these lines, and so now it's seeing both faces, right? It's not just having access to the top face and the front face, it also has access to the side face. Why this is important to us, as rounding back to the whole point of these trying to sell three-dimensionality, if your light source is seeing something like, maybe it's seeing the top, seeing a little bit of that face, seeing a little bit of that face, right? Maybe if our base, if this is our lamp, this is the top of our lamp, this is the bottom, it's maybe seeing a view something like what we have over here. And so both faces are receiving the same amount of light, which means that we're going to have a light top face, a medium front face, and a same tone medium side face. And that just ruins the whole three-dimensionality of everything, right? We want a light, a medium, and a dark. That's what we want. And so we're placing the light in an area where it doesn't go, it stays kind of in this square of guidelines that our cubes reach out, right? Because if it crosses, if it goes, this way, if it goes to the left and it crosses that line, our lamp is going to be over here, and it would see both of these faces of our left cube, and then that's no good, right? We want it to only see one face of the cube, and so it needs to land somewhere in this square, or else it just won't really work out, right? If it went to the left, boom, here's my light, and now this one I would be less bad about, because it would be if we did our draw throughs here, right? Our light, it crossed over this left line, and so it's seeing this draw through face, and then also the front face, but we don't see the front face, or we don't see this draw through face, and so it's not. This is an option, but I would recommend, just for simplicity, sticking within the bounds of this square. If you got what I was talking about just here, then you can do that. But for simplify it, just put it in the square that these guidelines make. So this is actually pretty simple. We're going to treat each vertical as a kind of what sets up our light source. So in this, we have a total of 4 verticals, right? It's a cube. We have front, back, draw through, right? You'll have to do your draw throughs for these. I already found the corner. All I really need is this back corner, right? Because that gives me all the information to actually finish my draw through. But you will need to do draw throughs in pencil, because we don't want them to show up, in the final render of these objects. But you will need this information. We need this back corner because it gives us information on this vertical. And so how this all works is you just go top of the light, it's shining down, it hits the top of the vertical, goes. Now we go from bottom of the light to the bottom of this same vertical, and we get a point, right? This forms a big old triangle, right? Big old triangle here, and we get a point, and then we do that for each vertical. So top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, boom, we get a second point. Do it again one more time, top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, boom. We get a third point. Awesome. And then theoretically, you could also do this fourth one. It's going to be behind our object, and so it won't really matter most of the time. You normally only have to do 2, but you could. Theoretically, this is how the actual drop shadow is happening. You'd get a 4th point there. And so now we have 4 points. And so all you have to do is, lower the opacity of your pencil sketch, and then connect the dots. So I'm going to just do that quickly. Get this pen, go on a new layer, and boom, from this corner to this dot. Now we're playing connect the dots. Boom. 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 And so this is the shape of our drop shadow. We have completely calculated our drop shadow, right? This whole, here, if I fill it in, I guess I don't get to fill it in, but that's all right. If this whole thing is the technical drop shadow of our shape. And so when I go to erase some of our guidelines, which you'll do at the end because we don't want to see them, this is the kind of shape that we'll get. Right there, boom, drop shadow. Look, that looks pretty good, right? Should, because it's accurately corrected, or And so that's what our drop shadow looks like, right? Accurately calculated, perfect. Top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, We get it 4 dots, connect them, and you got a great drop shadow, right? And so we can do that one more time here, just real quick, so that we're on the same page. Top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, boom, top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, top of the, bottom of the, bottom of the. 3 points, lower that opacity, new layer. We're just creating a bunch of layers out here. And I'm going to flip it. Boom, boom. And there are our drop shadows established. Now for the actual rendering, I can't give a fantastic demo for exactly what you'll be doing, as I'm not using Copics, and I don't really have a setup that can, properly capture it, if I'm being honest. And it definitely, right, the Copics are not going to show up on our demo projector. That's for darn sure. So I can do my best to explain, though. Essentially, you'll just want to, as we kind of took note of, if we view this, you can kind of rationale through a lot of these lighting things, right? If we are viewing this cube from the perspective of our light source, as we talked about earlier, it's something. I'm exaggerating here to show my points, but it might be something like this, right, where we're seeing an angled, a converging top, right? These 2 lines are converging, and then also these are converging down, and then as well we're seeing I have my light pretty high up, and it's kind of close to our object, so it's seeing a lot more of this face than this face, right? And so because this face is receiving, right, there's less area, the light is seeing less of it, which means that it's receiving less light, which means that it's going to be darker. And even if this wasn't the case, right, like if technically for this box in the back, it's arguable that it's seeing something much more of a 50-50, if not even the front face receiving a bit more light, because it's much farther away, right? The distance there is much farther than the distance here, and so you'd expect this one that it's closer to, the top is receiving a lot more light and a lot less light on the front, but since this one, is kind of far away, you could probably say that the light source is hitting these pretty darn equally. Either way, we're going to render this back one the exact same way that we're rendering the front one, because it sells dimensionality better. If you want to actually know about lighting, it's important to know how lighting works. But at the end of the day, we're selling 3D volume and form, and so anything that you can do to increase clarity is always of kind of the utmost importance. So I'm going to drop in, we're going to pretend this is your C1 or C2, this is your C4 marker, and this is your C6. So with my C2, I might, right, it tapers down back here, and so this is receiving a little bit less light in the back, and so just to really sell that the light is closer to our front edge, I might do some light fading. Boom, a little bit of a gradient, right, getting a little darker as it goes towards the back edge. On this front face, I might use, pull out the C4. And as I get to the bottom, I'm also going to gradient it a little bit. I want it to be lighter on the bottom because bounce light. And so the light hits the floor scatters light everywhere, right? It's doing that all the time. All of this floor space, boom, light's coming down, light's hitting the floor, boom, light is bouncing off it. And so the box part that's closest to the floor is the base, and so it's receiving the most amount of bounce light, and so it is going to actually get a little bit of a gradient for that reason. And then we're going to use our C6 on the back. This one doesn't directly have a bounce light, right? The front face is receiving a lot of bounce light because the light's hitting right here on the floor and really just bouncing up like right at its feet. But this one has a drop shadow, and so it's actually going to receive significantly less bounce light, And so we're almost not even going to take it into consideration, except maybe at this corner. Right, because this corner, boom, bunch of light there, we get some bounce. And so maybe you want to leave that front corner a little bit, just a little bit brighter, to sell some bounce light in that area. And then remember, you do have, if you got Mike's Art and Design Kit, you did pick up a white colored pencil. And so, that could maybe be used right here. If you go a little too heavy with your marker and need to go back in with a little bit of white colored pencil to maybe lighten that up, that's an option available to you. Right? And this is really about layering. Alcohol markers. Okay, listen up here. If you've already used alcohol markers before, then this, you should know this. But otherwise, if you've kind of struggled with alcohol markers and not making them work, the big thing is that they're wet. And so time is actually of the essence. If you lay down some marker and then let it sit for like even just 10 seconds, it's dried now. It's hard to manipulate. But if you lay it down and then you immediately go back on top of it and you immediately go back on top of it and you get like darker with each stage, then you can get really nice gradation that's super smooth, super clean, super nice. I'll end that there. I might show some videos after this demo as well, just some quick, like skimming through a couple quick marker renders that I've saw from different people to maybe just get the brain flowing on how you might want to approach doing it. But I might throw in my level 6 there to show the occlusion, right? Just a flat tone, not really doing anything too fancy, and call that good. Mine doesn't quite work, but you could ambient occlusion on these corners, right? You're receiving the least light right here where the object actually meets the ground. And so maybe it gets like a little bit of occlusion, a little bit of tapering, by just going it over with your 6 again, right? And that's making this cube really start to pop. So I'm going to time lapse this one in the back as well, just so you can see another cube example, and then we'll get into our L. All right, if you have your white gel pen and you want to add, a couple tasteful specular highlights, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to stop you. Anyways, for our L shape, you're going to treat it exactly as you did the box, except we're just calculating 2 more dots, namely being here and here. Now, with the one exception that's going to kind of jolly your mind a little bit, is that we're actually going to treat this box, your instinct might be, oh, okay, well, we want to find this bottom corner, and so you go right top, I know what I'm doing, top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, but that would be incorrect, because the actual bottom of the vertical is over here, and this is the triangle that we are making. What are you talking about? What I'm talking about is we're actually going to treat this L, when we're doing our calculations, as though it is in a box, right? So it's not an L, it's actually a box. But when we're calculating this top vertical and this back vertical, this is our base. These two are our bases, not here, right? This is not the base, and this isn't the base. All the way down here is. Because this is the actual anchoring point in space, right? Just like our floating light, we need to establish its base, right? Even if this didn't have a light post and this was a drone light, the base still matters, right? The location it is in space. Same with these. You need to find the true base of the object to calculate its drop shadow with the setup that we have here. So I'm going to go do that right? Switch colors, top of the light, top of the vertical, boom, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, top of the light. Right, and then doing the draw through here. I found this corner earlier. So bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, boom. Right, and so for clarity's sake, I load the opacity here, and so I calculated the 4 dots just as if this were a box, right? The same way that we did it before. You know, this is our drop shadow. Boom, 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 boom. Right, exact same thing. No difference from what we did before. But now, this isn't taking into account this whole open space that, you know, that's open here, right? This is treating it. If we're looking at this box from the light's view, right now we only have the information of treating it like this. We need to turn that into the information of treating it like its actual shape, right? We need this cutout area to actually be cut out. And so how you do that is we just get 2 more dots, namely being right here and right here. And so this is now the top of the vertical. So we're going to go from our top of our light to this dot, bottom of our light to this is the bottom. For this one, that's still the bottom. So we get a dot here. And then as well, top of the light, top of the vertical, bottom of the light, bottom of the vertical, boom. So we have a dot, dot. Now we can actually connect the dots, this shape. Oh yeah. We did it. We calculated the drop shadow. It is correct. Booyah. I'm going to go on a time lapse just to, you know, show this off a little bit and how it might look in the final product. Pretty freaking classy, if I do say so myself. Alright, so hopefully y'all starts to look kind of like this near the end of it, right? Big total of 6 cubes. Hopefully your L looks kind of the same. We get that drop shadow going. And yeah, you know, just a final call out, right? Even for the L placement, just a circle back, because this is exactly what you'll be doing in a second. I put this right within the bounds. It didn't go outside. It didn't go across this line because I wanted this face to be in darkness, right? I wanted that face to be in darkness, so I didn't let the lamp cross the line. And then we also get this little triangle cutout shadow. If our lamp had been, in fact, you know, over this direction, then the cast shadow actually becomes like this, and then we don't get this little triangle. And I like seeing the little triangle right there. It just adds a little bit of fun to it. Anyways, that is all. I will turn it back to me